All right. So good evening. Once again, we're glad to be back. Glad to have you back with us. Tonight we have a special treat. We have our friends coming on the line to say hello to everyone and to share some of their stories, some of their experiences, some of their testimonies, um, as they were also a part of the congregation there that we were in over in San Antonio, Texas. With that said, hello and good evening, guys. How y'all doing?
We're doing good, sir.
Doing very good. How you doing?
Doing well. I'm laughing because I was telling him about whispering louder. He doesn't like to talk loud, so y'all might hear his voice is muffled a little bit. Um, but we've grown to uh, grow a very, very, very tight bond, very warm and loving relationship in our friendship because they're just so genuinely real. That said, I'm going to sit back while they just go whichever direction they would like to go. As I do, I might interject every once in a while for them to expound on something here or there. I guess, matter of fact, let me ask this. Do y'all want to share what you thought when you first came into the house of prayer? What you noticed, how you felt, and going from there?
Ladies first.
Okay, so coming from a Catholic background, I wanted to say it was kind of weird. Just because, well, it was weird to me having to call this individual person that was in charge of the organization, you know.
Addie?
Yes.
Yeah, I say Addie. Yeah, I don't say the D word.
No, I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely weird coming in. What I noticed myself going in was that it did feel very peaceful. I personally enjoyed your sermons. The atmosphere was just great in my opinion. But definitely first walking in, it was, I don't want to say a cultural shock, but it was certainly different from what I grew up in. Even though my family didn't practice the religion, it was odd, and it took a while for me to get used to certain concepts that I wasn't used to before.
Right. And she said, everybody, that they're coming out of Catholicism. And it was still a culture shock. Uh, and they didn't practice extreme, but for them, it was still different. Because would you say all of your lives you had known Catholicism and practiced the teachings inside of the Catholic Church?
I don't know about Lucy doing it when she was a kid, but I went to a catechism and got my first communion.
Okay.
I'm Roman Catholic. Um, my family did try to practice. We got to dress up every Sunday to go and learn all about all that. But it was definitely a big shock for me, and I was a little bit skeptic in the beginning, to be totally honest. Same thing that Lucy, my wife, was saying. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. And the thing that was shocking was the title of the leader that we utilize being Addie.
Yes, very much so. I was always used to the Pope or the Bishop, you know, um, as far as calling him, using the name synonymous to, my actual parent, it was very different. So it took a while for me to come to terms with that, but just being around you and honestly my experience with you was something else. Like I said, I was completely a skeptic, but finding somebody who leads by example was always a big thing. Even growing up, I'm not really the do it I say type of person. Just because you say it doesn't mean I'm going to do it. But if you do it, I'll do it. You know.
Right. Somebody's telling you to do something. His preference, what he's saying is, for someone to give an order, for him, he needs to see that that person is not only willing to abide by those orders, but that that person is walking in those orders. Um, and we've grown a respect for one another because there are individuals, especially with military type backgrounds, who understand that some orders can be very, very costly. In this regard, we're talking about, as you heard him say, a title that really becomes a term of endearment for someone who's near and dear to us. And, you know, opposite our mother, we're talking about father. And we're not just saying father, but we're saying Addie, you know, and that in itself can be a stretch. Outside of that, what did you guys feel when you came in, other than that, the use of that title?
Well, the way I used to dress, I was actually I caught a lot of attention. So it it took some getting used to put on this. But with your help, I was able to make a very big change in my life. So
You wasn't accustomed to wearing suits and shirts and ties.
No, no.
Yeah, I remember.
in my background, I had polos and long sleeves, but I put them instead of khakis.
Yeah, I remember that first service that you wore your suit. His wife was actually in tears, just buckets. She had same thing, never seen him in a suit, and he kept looking down at his tie and fixing his jacket, and he enjoyed how he looked, but it's a bit awkward because again, he's never worn one. How long do you think it took you to get accustomed to wearing one? Did you feel proud or ashamed or goofy or embarrassed?
At first, I felt goofy. Then, again, being from my background and the people I was surrounded with, a different amount of respect came with the change of attire. My wife would tell you that we went to a restaurant, and instead of waiting in line for an hour and a half for a table, they kind of just sat me down pretty quick.
Oh, wow.
So,
Immediately?
Yeah, it was a pretty good power trip, I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
So again, from my background, I'm used to a certain amount of respect, but with the suit came a little bit more extra respect from people I didn't know. So after a while, again, being from my background, I guess after the change in character took over my heart the way it did, it seems like more people came to me mostly to talk. For some reason, even the way I look now, people still come to me to talk and have a conversation.
Right.
It's different. It's new. That part I'm still getting used to after all these years.
After all these years, he's talking about, what was it? The last time we were there was about 2012 in service, or?
Yes, sir.
No, 2012 was the year that Josh, sorry.
Uh-huh.
Our kids were born. So I think the last service we had was back in 2011.
Okay. Matter of fact, that would be right. It was right up to where you guys, towards the end of 11, where we saw the chairman come, and there was some activity around the chairman. But let me ask you this: what was your feelings as you got more accustomed to coming to services? What did you notice regarding yourselves? Anything that stood out, or anything that y'all noticed about each other?
With myself, mostly, I've always been the type of person that overthinks a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember telling you one time after service that this particular one service, don't remember exactly what happened throughout the service, but I do remember that I went outside to the building where we had the house of prayer, and I was sitting out in the dark, and then everybody was leaving, and I think you went out there, and you started talking to me, and I was crying. You had asked me at the time why I was crying, and I told you because for the first time in my life, my head was quiet.
Yeah, I remember that night.
And now it's, of course, the quiet is rarely ever there, but I find that I can concentrate, or at least I can have my moments where there is that quiet.
Would you describe that as peace of mind?
Yes,
Okay.
very much so.
Okay. And in regards to the relationships between both of you and the rest of the members, or any of the members in particular, or the activities that y'all recall?
There was an older lady there. I can't call her name,
Uh-huh.
but she had a husband that would go to and from Dallas, I believe it was.
Okay.
And she always had some pretty negative things. And then there was the younger one that also had I remember she had like a screaming match with you outside in the hallway. So.
Remember those instances?
Yeah, I mean, this.
Honestly, sir, like a lot of the stuff in the house of prayer, we were fairly new, so a lot of our experiences come with being so, I guess, intertwined with you and your family, especially with you, because you helped us get from the point that we were then in our relationship to the point where we are now. And we came together. We grew not only as individuals when it came to understanding, because granted, when we joined the house of prayer, we were still fairly young. I mean, Mark and I got
It's all good.
But my husband and I, we got married very young. We're high school sweethearts, and we stayed stuck. I mean, granted, in our mindsets, because we are still typically just growing out of that somewhat childhood mentality into adulthood. And even though we've had our fair shares of experiences in life, and that most people probably wouldn't be experiencing at those ages, our interactions with you helped us grow as human beings, as individuals, to help understand not only our place, but each other better. And we take a lot of that perspective into our relationship now.
And in regards to how that might have carried over to your the children?
The children, the only ones that still remember you because they
we do try to teach them about the house of prayer. We do try to teach them about the Bible. We have been reading a little bit with it.
Yeah, what we teach now, what it is I share with individuals is actually what you've been seeing on the videos, that in reading the Word and a desire to grow close to the Lord is all that's really necessary to establish a relationship with Him. Anything more than that, the Lord knows how to reach us and take our hand and lead us to Him. There has been many, and I use myself as an example, for 40 plus years, how I myself was deceived and misled and was not aware that I was actively involved in what I now know to be a cult. But my thanks and my attitude in my realizing that is that I'm grateful, even more so to the Lord, because of those experiences. It helped me gain that much more determination to ensure that whatever I do going forward, that I would pay that much more attention to His Word and ensure that anybody else around me or over me, that they're only telling me things from His Word, and that I direct all of the attention to His Word. That in itself is what the Lord is looking for. So it can be emotional for everyone who came through and had any type of an experience with the Lord, especially when they experience what people have referred to as church hurt. There is no hurt like church hurt. Because when you trust people to build or lead you to build a relationship with the Lord, and you know that you can put anything in His hands, to include the most deepest and darkest secrets, those individuals that's nearest and dearest to your heart, the things that you will never ever share with anyone, when you can put those things in His hand, only to find that the people that you thought were serving Him and leading you to Him, when you find that they maybe perhaps lied or deceived, well, then people will turn that anger towards the Lord. How can you do this? How can you allow this to happen? How can you allow me to trust this individual? So on and so forth. So we've had, as you've heard me share, individuals that have left to become atheists. And we're talking about quite a few people become Catholics, Presbyterian, Muslim, Seventh-day Adventist, Mormon, in all walks of life. Some people to become a non-believer, or to simply not become affiliated with anything, anywhere, and just continue reading their word. The biggest thing is, there's a question mark and there's an emptiness left in people's heart that has experienced church hurt, no matter where they're from. Because this happens in many, many, many institutions around the world. When you involve, I'm sorry?
Actually, I do remember something else. There was a couple there. I think it was on actually one of your episodes that there was a couple there.
Yeah.
And that was a heartbreaking thing to see, and that's because I wasn't even part of it. It was kind of just from afar, but it was heartbreaking to see all that stuff that they brought back, So I do recall that. So yeah, but that was heartbreaking to see, and especially because they were like in tears. You can see that it hurt them just to even, it hurt them so much to get that much courage to do it. But it really did break my heart, and I remember that pretty good.
Now, you're saying it broke your heart. Is that because of the relationships that we had all built together?
You get a certain camaraderie with people after, going through some of the issues and confiding in them. And then to see them get their heart broken about certain things, and then to the point where they're so devastated that they have to turn in all their stuff and, try to do what's best for their family and carry on, but in a different way. So it's not good when people turn away, but I understand that people got to do what they got to do. It's just heartbreaking to see that that they had to do such a thing.
And what he's describing is the incident that I touched on prior in one of the prior videos regarding a couple that had simply had enough. They had an internal struggle within themselves, whether or not they should continue in the course, in the direction that they're in, while continuing to come and worship with us, but knowing that there's things that don't seem right. There's things that the Bible is contradicting. There's things that they're seeing and they're hearing amongst leaders. Even some of the things that I myself was teaching that did not accurately line up with the scripture. As I've said, the Lord allowed me to understand that many of these things that I was teaching was not His word. It was an understanding of His word, that I was using His word to push, teach, and share with others that really was an interpretation that was not accurate. Because in my mind, it was applicable to the organization that I was a part of. This couple was devastated. They were crushed. And he says he remembers it was one night when they came over to our home and they dropped off everything that they owned that had anything to do with the House of Prayer. Literature, G-Class awards. They were one of the top 100. Watches, buttons, pins, lapel, but anything and everything. I remember there's a Bible that he had taken his notes and written different things in on the pages. He even dropped that off. That's how much they wanted to walk away and leave everything about the House of Prayer behind them as they went forward. It was hurtful because we, as he just said, were like family. Do y'all remember any of the events that we used to have?
Yeah, we remember we went to Big Lou's.
Yeah, it was a big loop.
And then what was that diner location with that big old cinnamon roll?
Oh yeah, Mama Lou's.
Lulu's.
Lulu's.
We went there.
Oh, Big Lou's is a spot. It has literally 72-inch pizzas. One slice of pizza, literally, one slice is maybe this long. Literally, one slice. The pizza is so big, it takes 2 people to bring it out to your table. That was Big Lou's, and she just talked about Lulu's. There's a honey bun, it weighs 3 pounds, this big around, that thick. You literally have to cut it. It's just San Antonio. Anyway, we're coming back. And some of the other, you remember the cookouts or the movie nights?
Yes. Going to the park and the movie nights with the kids is awesome.
Yeah, and this is how we built the camaraderie.
Was it Rio? Oh my goodness! I remember watching Rio.
Tabby with Rio.
We did a lot of the Pixar and the animated movies, and the intent was to teach members how to take the morals and the lessons out of movies. So we would watch these movies together, animated movies, children's movies, as a congregation, and we would point out different characters and relate those characters to the scripture and get lessons out of these movies. They just talked about Rio, R-I-O. Very, very powerful movie. The Lion King, Princess and the Frog, Finding Nemo. The messages in those movies and how they relate to the scripture, powerful. That said, what do y'all recall happened, or how is it that things kind of went sideways?
Honestly,
whenever
I honestly don't remember to pinpoint anything. What exactly happened?
Right.
I know that somewhere along the way, there were just things that were going on that weren't making sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember that we went to Dallas at one point. That is when one of the sisters, and you had spoken about that, I believe in one of your videos as well, but one of the sisters was screaming.
Oh, yeah.
And she was really upset. I remember you trying to calm her down, went to the hotel, and I remember at the time I was there with your family in one of the rooms, and you took this sister, and I think it was your mother as well that went, and y'all handled whatever business y'all have to do with that. But then all of a sudden there was all of these accusations that were being thrown, and then you had requested that we write letters, detailing what it is that, our experiences in the house of prayer. And I think somebody came to talk to us.
Yeah, the chairman.
Mm-hmm.
How did that work out? Did he talk to you all together as a entire congregation, or?
He talked to us individually, if I remember correctly. It was individually.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I mean, the next thing we knew was we had our congregation, and then all of a sudden there was nothing. And yeah.
Yeah. The incident that happened out of town, that was when we had taken the congregation up to actually sit in with the council. But they wouldn't. Do you remember going in to see the council or not going in at all?
We didn't go in.
Right.
I know that we were in like one of the smaller, I think a smaller chapel or something.
Right. Yep. Mm-hmm. And while waiting, the council was already set up on the inside. They had actually, after I went in, they sent the assistant pastor out. They didn't want him to hear what they were sharing with myself, saying to myself, claiming, and long story short, after they had finished what they were doing, and I had left the council, I went back in to get them, and we left the chapel to go back into the kitchen, go ahead and get something to eat, because the council would not, they refused to allow them to come inside. That said, apparently the secretary was also being seen while we were in the kitchen. And there may be many members of the organization that had come on the buses that year that may recall a sister running out of the court where the council was, yelling and screaming, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, they're setting you up. I didn't know they're setting you up. And she came and screamed. I grabbed her, she hugged me, and everyone's watching, so I walked her out the exit door from the cafeteria around the parking lot, and the individuals were coming out to go to the buses, so we walked around the front of Dallas and sat in the entryway where there's the benches, where she confessed everything that was going on. I spoke about this individual, and she herself was not aware of how she was being used by the chairman, by the district chairman, and by the chairman's sister-in-law at the time, to mislead the bishop about what was going on in San Antonio. So nobody knew anything, and that's what she's speaking about. How long was it, do you think, that after that incident happened, before all of a sudden it seemed as if San Antonio was coming to a slowdown where individuals stopped coming out, or that I let the lease space go?
Maybe like a few months.
Yeah, for like 2 months.
Yeah, it didn't take that long, because I know that we were active members for about a year, and then
people stopped coming like almost right away. Like we lost like almost half the congregation.
Yeah.
And then like people started dwindling out after that, and then
after a while, it was just us, and you let go of the space. Yeah.
What they just said is, it didn't take long at all. Just a matter of a few weeks, people started dwindling down. Immediately, almost half the congregation. Until a few more weeks went by, it was just us. We had leased a space for 2 years, and we were up at times. I think the largest times we had individuals coming in just for service was, if I'm not mistaken, 35 members. We had 52 on roll, and at any given time, it would be a revolving door of members in the services consistently. But they got to see it really dwindle down. And they didn't know what was going on, as I didn't know what was going on. So I'm trying to share with them and telling them, listen, I have no idea how to explain this. But I do know that the Lord works in mysterious ways, and there's things that he has done. And sometimes his servant has been deceived, even in the scripture. So some would hold on, but there had been about what, maybe a year and a half prior to that incident where we were hearing things from the road, things being said from the mountain, um, as well as, things coming from the leadership at the top about what's going on in San Antonio. Do y'all remember any of that?
I remember they were supposed to build like a really big cathedral here for us. Um, I remember like we were talking about spaces that were around town, and then all of a sudden,
Nothing.
yeah.
In fact, I remember you actually pointing out the space, and I mean, we drive by it every day on our way to and from work, and
Oh, still?
Yes, it's close to the kids' school.
Wow. And no one, no one has purchased it yet.
I think there's a small part that got taken up by a new restaurant that they built there, but
Wow.
it's nothing compared to like the original chunk of the land that you were planning to build that cathedral on.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That would have been nice. The one that we went to in South Carolina was a beautiful one.
That one
That was a
pretty
pretty
one.
one.
Yeah, what had happened was I learned when we went to California that the statement had been made by council to the bishop at the time that the property had been sold. And so no more activity was being done to try to acquire that property. And then when I saw other things taking place, it was obvious that things were happening on the council that was giving false impressions. So that's when I called back and asked the assistant pastor to check on that property. And that's when we learned that there was no activity, it was still available. But by that time, the damage had already been done. And there was no cathedral going to be built because the people had already begun to slowly stop coming out. Before all those things happened, what were services like? Do you remember?
They were full, lively. There was a lot of good sermons. I remember everybody used to get involved. We'd all used to bang on the tambourine.
You're right.
The singing was great.
Yeah, the singing. We'd all get up there. It was always a fun time. It was actually really fun. Like, I never had an experience like that whenever I went to,
everybody going for either the pie or my husband's peanut butter brownies.
Yeah, they're talking. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was recalling.
You remember the trips? Any of the trips that you had taken with us? All of us as a congregation?
To Dallas, and then the one that we went to our first time to, was it South Carolina?
Yeah, I remember I was still new to the whole thing, and you had warned me before we left too. You're like, be careful when you're on the road because the devil has mysterious ways. They're gonna try to stop us. It takes 12 hours just to get out of Texas in any direction from where we're at. So about the 14th hour, I think we're just outside of Texas. We ended up getting pulled over. I remember having my wife call you and to say we got pulled over. Yeah, that was an interesting thing. I was asked to get out of the vehicle. I was asked a bunch of questions. For some reason, he was real adamant about asking me about where I was going, the church. Well, yeah, we're going to South Carolina, big old congregation up there, and we're gonna do what it was the blessings that we're gonna go receive, the baptism.
The baptism, yeah.
And it was a fun time. Me and my wife got to get reacquainted during that time. But you're right, the devil worked in mysterious ways that night. Thankfully, I was let go with a warning after professing my newfound faith. And I was let go with just, like I said, not even a written warning, just please slow down.
Yeah.
Please, be safe. So that was very interesting.
Now, since that time, how has things been sense in regards to, I understand that the building is still there and the sign is still up. I got a couple of phone calls and people saying that when they pass it, they reminisce, they think back, and they remember. Um,
Oh,
Yeah, we.
I was working out there
Yeah, he
quite a
was.
bit. Almost for about a year, I was working out that way, and every time I passed, I was like, I wish it was still there. There's a lot of conversations that me and you stayed up for all hours of the night. Every time I had a question, you were always there.
Your old apartment.
Yeah, I miss it. I miss it because during one of your sermons, you talked about if you ever had any issues, and if you feel like it was too heavy, go take it to the mountain, leave it at the mountain, and God will sort it out. I guess over the years, without being able to put that weight down at the mountain, it's been a little heavy for us here. In a lot of different aspects of our lives, and we miss it. We miss everything about it. We did get a little bit of looks because of again different backgrounds and
Yeah, I think he's talking about the baptism, after the baptism.
I remember walking up and there was a gentleman. He started questioning me in Spanish, and then I started answering back in Spanish, and then he kind of got quiet. I was like, okay, well, let's not do that.
Yeah, everyone was standing around while, of course, dripping, soaked and wet. But was that you that was caught up?
Yeah.
Caught up shouting.
The spirit, yes, sir.
Yeah, and his wife was just a bucket, just a bucket. It was one of the absolute best times that we recall. And there was a photographer that was actually standing around taking pictures. I believe those pictures actually ended up online. And if I'm not mistaken, I still have copies. I'm gonna look them up and make sure I get them to you.
12 years later, sir.
It's all good. Is there any? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just keep mine.
Oh gosh, we had the opportunity to get those letters. They had written letters to the former bishop. Incidentally, he got the letters, but he didn't open the letters to read them. He passed them on to at the time the senior minister. No, I don't think it was senior minister at that time. At the time, he passed them on to who is currently the bishop. Gave him some instructions and sent me with him, but those instructions weren't carried out. And I know that, at least I fully believe, that the results of that meeting, they were not accurately described to the former bishop. At any rate, the members understood that there was a lot of things that were shared and said that was not only inaccurate, but simply not true at all. What did you guys think when you heard and saw the activity and the behavior that's taken place around the house of prayer, knowing what you all experienced and knowing what you all were part of and the camaraderie that we had? How did that hit you guys? How did that resonate when you heard what was taking place? In fact, do you remember when the bishop visited?
Oh God, sir! Don't even get me started with that visit.
What do you recall, if you don't mind?
I remember that. I know that your wife at the time, and including the secretary, we were supposed to perform a dance. The three of us for Bishop Bailey, and when we were there, we completed our dance, and I remember you going.
It was a little skit, like a display.
Yes.
Yeah.
So after everything was said and done, you went up there and you introduced us to Bishop Bailey. And I remember thinking and feeling, why do I feel like I'm being, how can I say, sized up? It didn't feel like I was being welcomed when I stood before him. It felt like I was being judged for something that I didn't understand that I did. And I remember telling my husband at the time, and I think I told your wife at the time the same thing, like, why do I feel like this? I don't understand. Maybe it's just me because of my life leading up to that moment, or whatever the case was, but I honestly did not feel welcome that day. And I thought it was just me.
And do you recall the response that was given when you brought that to our attention?
Honestly, sir, no, I don't.
Yeah. Do you remember the second incident, or the second visit? There was a visit to Dallas where we were there that night. Do you remember the visit that was when he came to San Antonio?
We weren't part of that one.
Okay. It wasn't too long after that that things kind of spiraled and kind of went even further south. But with all of that said, we're glad to know that you guys are doing okay. Let me ask you this as well. Once there was no longer a building where we were going to have services, and members no longer coming and participating after all of those various incidents with information just coming from all directions. How did that affect or impact you guys after we came to a close and ended what was going on?
Don't ask me. I'm gonna say
Because I'm a little more eloquent than my husband is. At least for myself, I can't speak for him, but at least for myself, it felt like we lost something that was unique to us, something that was good to us. And when we were the only ones that were left,
you still try hanging on by going to your place too.
yeah, I remember that when you were still here, we would go to your home, and we would still have, a few Bible studies here and there. We would still do
Marriage counseling.
the marriage counseling that we had between ourselves. You would spend plenty of time with us individually.
You really felt like you're the only one that didn't give up on us.
Yeah.
So like everybody else just packed up and went their own way. You really stuck around to help as long as you could. So.
And then even throughout all these years, we're literally by ourselves here.
But since then, what you've been able to put into your children, how have they now grown up? The achievements and the successes that they have also had.
A lot of that comes from you helping me with my misguided ways. Coming from the street background that I did, a lot of things were normal to me. That's why I always had so many questions with you. But a lot of growing up took place under your roof for me. So I try to take a lot of what you taught me about being a better example, a better leader for my children, and being a better man of God, because a man of this world won't take anything with them. What we look for is a paradise afterward. So I try to instill that into my children to make sure that we're protective of others, and to make sure that even though there's a lot of great darkness in the world, that we don't try to gravitate to it, because it's not going to do us any good.
And
I keep the kids well balanced, and they're way better
You're strong, you're stubborn.
They're definitely not a chip off the old block like that. So I'm very grateful for your guidance and how much you were able to change my heart, my mind, and make me do everything the right way by the book, as it were.
It certainly looks like, as we've said time and time again, Maria and I, they look wonderful. They look good. They're growing up awesomely. The things that they've been involved in and the things that they've achieved already. And we already know that y'all have a whole lot of things to look forward to as they continue to grow and prosper and develop into the young men that y'all are pretty much molding them and shaping them to be. With that said, all the things that you know and the people that you become as husband and wife, and even becoming more mature in the knowledge that you have of the word, that's the success that you have instilled in them. Again, as we go forward, the understanding is, even with the disciples, even with the people in Jesus' day, they themselves did not know that they were being misled, misguided, and not given the teachings and the word of the Lord. The leaders had taken advantage of them greatly, and they were completely blindsiding the people left and right by doing the things necessary to take advantage of their ignorance of the things that God wanted. That said, look at yet and still how you guys have been on a path that is still leading you all to still blossom and bloom in the direction of where you're going, because the Lord has his hand on your lives. You know, looking back.
That's good, because there's been a lot of moments where we don't even know how the heck we made it, but we made it.
Yeah.
Still alive, exactly.
And the Lord knew what he was doing then, and he knew what he was doing since then, and he certainly knows what he's doing now. That said, is there anything that either of you would like to share or touch on before we wrap up?
Mostly waiting on you to get back to San Antonio so we can do all the Big Red and all the Big Blues.
Yeah, for all of you who haven't been to Texas, even if you can see about, wherever you live, you have to try the Big Red. It's a red cream soda. And oh my Snapple. Maria just said you can try there. I think they're at
in the store part.
Oh, the store part of a restaurant with barrel at the end. Again, we don't endorse anyone, and we don't want anybody to have the wrong impression that we're being endorsed or we're getting paid to do any of the things that we're doing.
Just proud Texans.
Huh?
Really proud Texans.
Just really proud Texans.
Oh gosh, it's one of those things. In Texas, there's a Big Blue and there's a Big Red. The Big Red, woo. Anywho, we'll be making our way. And when we do, we'll be giving you a heads up that we're getting ready to pull into the parking lot over at Lulu's or Big Lou's. In the meantime, we'll let you guys get ready to get back. Thank you for your time. Anytime that y'all want to do this again, if there's anything that y'all recall, anything you would like to share, by all means, let us know. There's been people that have asked about you all that have gotten upset. They saw you when you were on the road. They saw you when you visited the various houses. Some of them know you particularly by a description of you. And so there's been a great interest in finding out where you are, what's going on with you, what you're doing, and if you're okay. So what this call does, it allows those individuals to know that you're fine, to know that you're good, to know that you're still taken care of, you're still blessed. What they have shared in the testimony is that they miss the relationships, they miss the camaraderie, they miss the events. We did a lot. Every other week, we would go out. We would go out on the water to barbecue on the lake. We had movie nights every other week. We did different events around camping sites. However, we never camped because I'm true to my nature and I'm not going to be around rabid squirrels or chipmunks that got diseases. Or listen, we're not going to do that. But we had a very, very beautiful time. Do you remember the revival that we had?
I don't know, sir.
Was that the one in Dallas?
No, the one where the missionary came down from Dallas and
Yes.
spent that week with us. Yeah.
I think about her very often, actually.
Yeah, she was.
They just said they think about her very often. The crowd, the congregation adored everything about her. The time that they had with her, the opportunity to get to know her, that whole week that we were able to spend with her, there was not enough that they could say about her. I touched on this individual in a previous video, and this being St. Patricia. And they were there also. They mentioned my mother as well. And what was the relationship that y'all had with my mother? Kind of.
We love your mother. She is amazing. She's a little grandma.
Yeah, they got to spend a lot of time with her.
Yeah, the auntie log.
She ever had some dog. She never had that before. She kind of freaked out.
And she always asking about you all as well. But thank you so very much for your time. We know that the children, they're somewhere in the back, and we know that y'all have to make sure that everything is still functioning. So we'll allow y'all to get back to them. Please let them know that I asked for them, and I'll be calling sometime soon so that we can set up some arrangements. My wife and I, we've already set our sights in your direction. So it won't be that much longer, and we'll be getting over there to Big Lou's sometime soon.
Yes,
Within the
sir.
next few weeks, hopefully.
That'd be awesome.
All right. Well, we love you guys, and thank you again for your time. Everybody, thank you for your time as well. Hope that you enjoyed listening in, and this probably will not be the last time. We're in touch with them quite often. But thank you for your time, and we'll see you in the next video.
See ya.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.